Welcome to AI GovCast. I'm Ross John Fortuné. One of AI's chief benefits is its ability to handle huge troves of data in near real time. At Modern Day Marine 2026, I spoke to two leaders from the 4th Marine's Logistics Group, Chief of Staff Colonel Prescott Wilson and Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Sung, who's an innovation officer in the Logistics Innovation Group and also a reservist Marine. We talked about AI, bringing technology into warfighters' hands, and Pulse Check, an AI prototype tool that is being developed to deliver near instantaneous command climate analysis. Listen to our conversation right here. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thanks, Ross. Good to have you.
I want to start with you first, Colonel Wilson. How does Pulse Check help commanders with their decision making, and what is it? What give us sort of the lay of the land as to what Pulse Check is?
So I think the best way to explain it is to kind of tell the story as to where it came from. So we had a commanders conference about a year and change ago, and we had a bunch of Marines up there explaining why they were dropping from being a drilling reservist, and they were dropping to the IRR, the Individual Ready Reserve, which is when they're no longer drilling reservists. So these Marines had all made a decision to no longer be a drilling reservist, and they had the option. They could have stuck around. The discussion then was, why are you dropping? Why are you making this choice, and why are you not sticking around and continuing to serve? The answers were not surprising. It's the same kind of stressors that Marines experience a lot about: challenges with pay, challenges with coordination, challenges in the stress in their civilian life, and how being a drilling reservist can be just a challenging thing to sustain over time. And we had this discussion then, well, how do you, by the time we're talking to these Marines on stage, they've already made a decision. They're effectively leaving our ranks, and that comes at a cost to manpower. That's talent we can't get back. So how do you get ahead of this? How do you have better feedback about the challenges Marines are facing on a day-to-day basis so you can resolve them proactively, and you can ostensibly keep them in the ranks? You can resolve these issues and get ahead of things. That's really where this thing started. And, I've been in command at the 05 and 06 level. I know that we have survey tools, but they're periodic. They're very deliberate. In other words, they take weeks to put together. They take weeks to get the analysis. I was thinking, there's room in there for a complementary, faster type analysis tool. And so Sam said, I think at some point, what if we used AI to create a tool? And that's really where this whole thing was born. I don't know anything about AI. Sam does. And then we went on this project of trying to design something that would create this tool to give to commanders.
How do you bring to you, because you are the AI guy, what does that look like in bringing all this AI forward while keeping within the federal standards, whether it's OMB, White House preferences, guidance, and a lot of statutes you got to follow?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that we were thinking through is there's that question that you just asked about the kind of security and all that stuff. But there's another component that I was more curious about before that. I think that is a problem that we do need to solve. We need to keep it secure and whatnot. And there's ways to mitigate for that. So for example, we specifically chose a format where it was anonymous. We didn't want personal data, etc. But I think the bigger question is, can we create something that is helpful? Because I think one of the challenges with innovation sometimes is that ideas die prematurely because people start thinking about the security requirements and whatnot. And I think that is all very, very important. That is very important. But there's also some ideas that we're not even sure if it's worth that level of investment. It may just be a bad idea, but we can never test the idea because we don't have a way of prototyping and testing. And so I would say when we kind of started with this, we said, look, we know we need to bring this into the Marine Corps system. We'd love to do it in the Marine Corps system, but one of the challenges was those tools are not available for us. So how can we test it in a safe manner using dummy data or whatnot, just to see, is there even a kernel of an idea that's worth pursuing? Because if not, there's no point in going through the entire security analysis and all that stuff. There's just no point. We just wasted a bunch of people's times. And that's one of the things that that me, after I left the Marine Corps and got my MBA and learned about entrepreneurship, that is one of the biggest things that I learned is in the startup world, it assumes that you don't know what the solution is. So in that kind of environment, you want to spend a certain amount of time with the hypothesis, but then you need to go out quickly and test it. You need to go test it with people who are actually going to use it, get their feedback. Do they find it helpful? If not, why? And so this rapid iteration is what I wanted to bring to this. And if it is an idea that is worth it, and when I talked with the chief, he was very interested. This is a very helpful tool. Then then this idea is worth it. So let's start going through and talking with all the personnel that we do need to.
One of the slides that you put, and I'll bring this to you, was to accelerate the sandbox. That's like one of the things that you're looking to do forward with this tool, and more generally on the innovation side. Can you kind of expand on that, especially as what we were just talking about?
So presently, if you take two things, you take a domain expert, someone who understands a particular topic, understands the policy, the history, all that stuff. That's going to be your senior leaders, a gunnery sergeant and up, perhaps to a captain and up, someone who really understands the Marine Corps, the way that it operates, or a particular part of the Marine Corps. And you marry them up with someone who's AI fluent. Then you have this forward deployed engineer idea where they can iterate and they can start with a whiteboard. And they can say, this is, maybe you can just problem frame and say, what are the problems that I can help with, I being the AI fluent individual? What is a problem I can help you solve using technology? And you have to have an open and iterative discussion in order for that to kind of mature. But then you want that AI fluent Marine to kind of come back with a better understanding of the problem to go back and then have something to play with. You want an environment where they can go in there and they can do the coding and come up with a prototype and then go back and say, what is this? How does this look? To the domain expert, whoever that is. And then be able to iterate. But that sandbox, that ability to go and quickly code and come up with prototypes is not something that we have easy access to. And frankly, I think, Sam, you can speak to a little more of what that looks like. But as soon as we can get there, as soon as we can create that atmosphere or that ecosystem where Marines can do that in a protected network, I think that's really going to be a step toward acceleration.
Yeah, I mean, actually, one of the Marines that came up to me afterwards, they're from the band, and is sergeant in the band, and he said he was actually thinking about something very similar to this, but he has to figure out, how do I get access to a tool? I mean, this is similar to, let's say, I'll use an analogy. If for example, someone's trying to create like a pull-up bar because their unit doesn't have a pull-up bar, they got to do pull-ups, and so what would they do? They would just kind of look around their unit and say, hey, well, there's some pipes here. Maybe I can put this together. But as soon as he reaches for the pipes, like, whoa, hold on. Like, you don't have authorization to do that. Like, okay, how about that? No, you can't touch that either. That's going to be used for something else. So basically, he's just sitting there with an idea. He's like, I can't even test the idea to see, can I make a better pull-up bar? So what he ends up doing is, okay, he'll just give up on the idea. Or he goes home and he has some pipes, or he goes to Home Depot and he makes it. And he's like, look, I have something. And so, but the question is, how many people have the drive to go home and look for the solution? And now moving back to the AI space, how many people have the drive to go learn these AI tools by themselves, create a prototype, etc.? And then like how far, and even if they create it, when they bring it back, they don't even know the process. So I think the challenge with, I guess, the sandbox is like, in a sandbox, you go in there, you can build a sandcastle and destroy it, and no issue. But you get to kind of test different designs and whatnot, and it's not like a big deal. But I feel sometimes when there's so much pressure, like you have to build a great pulse check, a great survey tool, there's just a lot of pressure that it's not an environment where they feel comfortable, where they can just kind of test different ideas. But the sandbox is that it's not only, I would say it's two components. Number one is having the tools where I can easily use AI tools. I don't have to like go get authorization. It's all there. I can just go and check out this AI tool. I can create an app, etc. And I think the second part, which the chief talked about during the presentation, is it's a cultural aspect. It's, if people are saying, I expect you to come up with this tool by this time, there's all this pressure, and you can't have creativity and discovery to come out. And so in the sandbox, you would need a culture where people are open to say, hey, that's really cool. What are you building? Hey, let's try this. Oh, how about let's iterate like this? And I think from there you can find something and really build something magical.
Yeah, from what I understand, PulseCheck has that origin story. So, like, how do you foment that culture within the Marine Corps, and how do you encourage it even more to have 100 pulse checks?
We ended our brief today talking about educate, incentivize, and inspire. We're trying it, and I think education is just exposing people at various rank levels and rank appropriate levels about what's available out there in the AI space and what an AI fluent Marine or sailor can do if you can marry them up with a domain expert. Just that alone is what is beyond what most people even realize right now. Certainly, I didn't know anything about AI until I met Sam, and it's been an incredible learning experience. That's educate. Incentivize. There's these programs where people can get certain monetary gifts if they come up with they win an incentive award, and that's good, and that kind of may get the ball going. But what we really want to get to is inspire, where you've got junior Marines and sailors who who understand how AI fluency, on top of domain expertise, couple in there with a sandbox to play in, can really yield a lot of readiness gains and a lot of bandwidth bought back to do, higher level tasks. And if we can get everyone thinking that way, everyone seeing the benefits of it, and then making sure senior leaders are not creating an environment where I want this tool by this time, I want you to build me this exact dashboard, because they're going to go down a very narrow path and they're going to miss out on the rich iteration that happens when you really explore the space of domain expertise and AI fluency put together. Thankfully, Sam and I had that. We talked a lot about how a commander benefits from and uses the existing surveys, and what a prototype might look like, and how a prototype might be better geared to really land on a command team well. There's a lot of, only because I've lived it a lot of times, and that collaborative effort is where the success comes from, I think.
I want to end on the speed aspect, because I know this is something that is always in the AI conversation. I'll start with you, but certainly I want to hear both your perspectives on this. Like, how does PulseCheck give that decision-making speed and the real-time nature of it? Because I know this stuff is often, there's a time lag, and AI eliminates that. So can you talk about that and what this brings to the table in terms of speed and decision-making?
Great question. So we have 4 surveys in mind right now. Out of this one idea came this idea for 4 surveys, really. And 2 of them are unique to the reserve. So a post drill, like a weekend drill where the Marines come in and they do their some training, then they go back home. And then the post annual training, which is a 2 to 4 week exercise where they go out to the field and they're doing their core mission essential tasks, usually more field training and whatnot. So a post drill survey, a post AT annual training survey, and then an overall experience. And this is really more at what would cause you to stick around, what would cause you to get out. It's where the idea for an exit survey kind of matured into, get a sense of an overall feel of the overall experience. And the last one is a command climate. How do you feel about your leadership? Do they feel like they're engaged with you and all that kind of stuff? So 4 different surveys, each of which, if given to a command team, a commander and his senior enlisted leaders, can be beneficial in resolving problems proactively. In the case of the drills and the ATs, you get immediate feedback on the good, the bad, and the ugly about how the Marines perceive the drill. You may have executed exactly the plan that you thought. You may have put a drill together or an annual training plan. You may have hit all the metrics you thought, and then you ask the Marines, and it's a very different picture once you ask the Marines, especially if participation rates are high because they know it's anonymous and they can do it on their phone and it only takes a couple minutes. And that stuff is valuable. If you can ever get that kind of information, one, it can sometimes corroborate what you already thought. I think this went really well. And you know what? The pulse check corroborated that this actually went extremely well. Very glad to hear that. It puts you on a very solid ground. Sometimes it tells you a different story where it's not as good as maybe I thought, or maybe it was better than we thought. Maybe I thought this was a disaster, and the surveys came back with more positive results. So all those things are possible. But it paints a clearer picture for a command team, no matter what the survey or the context, and they can get ahead of things. Really, the fundamental thing is sustained readiness. All Marine Corps units, reserve and active, their mandate in life is to gain readiness and sustain readiness through all the different challenges and the friction. If they can find ways of doing that, then they will really be getting somewhere. And Pulse Check helps with that.
I think another thing that it not only is faster, but it enables things that were previously impossible. So what I mean by that is, let's say there's a survey of, you have 100 people, and then you do a survey. And normally the DEOCS, which is once a year. So let's say from the DEOCS, it says something like, I don't know, they're unhappy with pay, they're unhappy with the pull-up bars. I don't know, as an example. So that's kind of a simple thing that you can fix. But do they really appreciate that? I don't know. Wait another year, and then you can find that feedback out, right? So, but what if there's other things where you want to try things, but you don't want to wait a year to see if did it work or not? And so, DEOCS once again is a great tool. But if there was another, like in a kitchen, we don't just have one knife. We have different knives for different purposes. So we could have different surveys for different purposes. So as an example, you can look at 100 surveys and ask them, hey, did you like the pull-up bar? And then you get the answer. But what if you made an improvement to the pull-up bar and you want to get their feedback? Then you would ask them maybe a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, and you keep doing it multiple times. So the reason you can't do that is because command teams are just super busy. And to read it once a year is, they can invest that time, but to read it 12 times a year, that would be very difficult. But now with this AI assistant, it can go and it can say, hey, we're looking for the change between this month and the next month. It can analyze that. And you're like, okay, let's do the survey again in a month, because the lift, not only is it easier for the Marines and sailors to fill out, it only takes 3 minutes, but it's also easier for the commanders and the senior enlisted to read the results. So if it's no longer this painful several hour process, and it's only minutes, then they're more likely to say, hey, can we run another one? Can we run another one? And then we talked about this yesterday, but if you can have more frequent feedback, you can also tell the Marines and sailors like, hey, we got your feedback. We'd like to do something about it. We're going to try doing it right now. We'd like to hear your feedback in the next survey next month. So it's this faster iteration loop. It doesn't take a year to get feedback. Now you can do it in much faster.
I'll tell you, Sam struck on something very substantive right there. With if the Marines and sailors in the ranks feel and they can see that their feedback matters and it's being listened to and it's being considered, there's a lot of sort of intangible readiness gain that comes from that kind of climate. And Pulse Check, I think once we can roll this out, I think commands that do it right are going to be able to show I care about your feedback. We adopted your feedback, and there's a closed loop where the Marines have a little bit more voice. It can be very helpful in making a stronger unit.
Yeah, really elevates the voices of the warfighters, I think, in that sense, for sure. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot.